In 1991, a retired railroad mechanic named Walter Hensley lived alone in a small frame house on the edge of Altoona, Pennsylvania. He was 74 years old. His wife had died 4 years earlier. His Social Security check came to $812 a month. His pension from the Pennsylvania Railroad had been frozen in 1968 at $94. He owned the house outright. He kept the thermostat at 64 degrees from October to April. He ate 3 meals a day. He paid every bill on the day it arrived. And every December, he mailed a $50 savings bond to each of his 11 grandchildren without fail. His neighbors assumed he had money tucked away. He did not. What he had was a notebook in the top drawer of his kitchen table, written in pencil, listing 31 rules his mother drilled into him during the winter of 1933 when the family lost the farm. When Walter died in 2004, his daughter found the notebook still in the drawer. Most of what was written inside would outperform any retirement strategy on the market today. They lived differently. Not because the world was kinder, it was not, but because they carried habits built during years when a missed dollar could cost a family its home. Those habits kept widowed seniors solvent for decades on incomes that should not have stretched a single month. We stopped teaching them somewhere between 1975 and 1995. We replaced them with credit lines and reverse mortgages and called it modern. The seniors who still remember are dying. The rules are dying with them. And the generation now turning 65 alone on fixed incomes in houses that cost more to heat each year is the one that needs them most. Number 19 on this list was used by every Depression-era widow in America and cuts a senior's annual grocery bill by an estimated $640. Number 11 was so unfashionable by 1980 that adult children begged their parents to stop doing it, and a 2020 study from the University of Michigan now calls it the single most protective financial habit for adults over 70. And number 3, the one rule Walter Hensley enforced more strictly than any other, the rule no neighbor was ever permitted to witness, is the reason an $812 Social Security check funded 11 savings bonds a year for 13 straight Decembers. These 25 tricks are not about being poor. They are about refusing to be helpless at the age when helplessness costs the most. They are the difference between a senior who stays in her home and one who is moved into a facility she cannot afford. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten poor man money tricks seniors living alone need to start using before it is too late. Number 25, the one-pot week. A senior living alone cooked one large pot on Sunday and ate from it through Thursday. Stew, bean soup, chicken, and rice. The pot cost roughly $4 to build in 1991, and it produced 10 servings. You ate it for lunch. You ate it for dinner. You added a slice of bread or a boiled egg to keep it from feeling repetitive. Walter Hensley ran a pot every Sunday for 16 years. For a widow, the pot was not a meal. It was the absence of cooking for one, the loneliest sentence in any kitchen. By 1991, county extension offices across Pennsylvania were teaching the one-pot method to senior centers under the name batch cooking. The widows in the room already knew it. Their mothers had taught it in 1934. The pot was not laziness. The pot was a week of dignity built in a single afternoon. The thermostat stayed at 64 degrees Fahrenheit from October through April. You wore a sweater inside. You kept a wool blanket on the chair where you read. At night, you used 2 blankets and slept in socks. A senior in a 1,200-square-foot Pennsylvania house in 1991 saved an estimated $340 a winter doing this. Across 20 years of retirement, that was $6,800. A roof replacement paid in degrees. During the oil crisis of 1973, the federal government had urged Americans to set thermostats at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The Depression generation laughed at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Their mothers had run houses at 58 degrees Fahrenheit in 1934 with one wood stove. 64 degrees Fahrenheit felt like luxury to them. The rest of America had simply forgotten what cold actually was. The cold was not suffering. The cold was a heating bill that did not arrive. Number 23. The coupon ledger. A small spiral notebook sat on the kitchen counter. Every coupon clipped from the Sunday paper was logged with its expiration date. Every Wednesday morning, senior discount day at the local grocer, the relevant coupons were pulled and stacked. A widow in Erie, Pennsylvania in 1992 tracked her ledger for 3 years and saved an average of $312 annually on groceries she would have bought anyway. The ledger was not about deals. The ledger was about not letting a saving expire in a drawer. By the early 1990s, the Sunday newspaper insert had become the largest single source of consumer savings in America, distributing roughly $2.6 billion in unredeemed coupons every year. The seniors with ledgers collected. The seniors without them subsidized everyone else's discount. The notebook was not paperwork. The notebook was money the grocer had already agreed to refund. Number 22, the lights-off sweep. Before going to bed, you walked through the entire house and turned off every light, unplugged every small appliance, and checked that the stove was off. The sweep took 4 minutes. For a senior in 1991, annual savings on standby power and forgotten lamps was roughly $84. That was a week of groceries. For a widow who had spent 40 years sweeping the house at night with her husband, the routine survived him. She did it for him as much as for the bill. Rural electrification had only reached most of Pennsylvania between 1936 and 1942. The seniors who learned to sweep a house at night had grown up turning off kerosene lamps. The habit was older than the wiring. The sweep was not a chore. The sweep was 4 minutes that paid for 7 days of food. Number 21, the mended sock drawer. A senior never threw away a wool sock with a hole in it. You darned it. A small wooden darning egg, a needle, and matching thread closed the hole in 11 minutes. Across a year, the average senior who darned saved an estimated $42 on new socks. That was a phone bill in 1991. The darning egg itself was usually inherited. Walter's had belonged to his mother and was carved from maple in 1908. By 1985, department stores had stopped selling them. The skills survived only in the hands of women born before 1935. They were the last cohort in America to assume that wool had value after it broke. The darned sock was not poverty. The darned sock was a marriage still being honored in wool. Number 20, the pharmacist conversation. Once a year, you sat down with your pharmacist and asked which of your prescriptions had a generic equivalent, a manufacturer discount, or a 90-day mail order option. The conversation took 15 minutes. In 1992, a senior taking 6 medications saved an average of $480 a year by doing this once. Almost no one did it. The pharmacist on Walter's block told a local reporter in 1998 that he had personally saved 3 widows from selling their homes by walking them through their drug costs on a slow Tuesday afternoon. None of them had thought to ask. This conversation was not begging. This conversation was the discount the pharmacy was already required to offer. Number 19, the single-item grocery list. You did not go to the grocery store without a written list. You did not buy a single item not on the list. If you remembered something halfway through the aisle, you wrote it on the list and crossed it off after putting it in the cart. A widow in Scranton in 1993 tested this against her old habits for 6 months. Her grocery spending dropped by 31%, roughly $640 a year, without changing a single meal she ate. The list was not a plan. The list was a fence against the small impulses that empty a fixed income $1 box at a time. The list was not a restriction. The list was a senior refusing to be charged for forgetting. Number 18, the phone tree refusal. When the phone rang and an unfamiliar voice asked for a donation, an extended warranty, or a limited time offer, the senior said one sentence and hung up. The sentence was, "I do not make decisions over the phone." Walter Hensley said it for 23 years and never lost a dollar to a phone scam. 3 of his neighbors lost over $40,000 between them in the late 1990s. The sentence was not rudeness. It was a wall built out of 7 words. Every senior living alone needed that wall by the year 2000. Most did not have one. The sentence was not a refusal. The sentence was a door the caller could not push through. Number 17, the library card replacement. Every magazine subscription, every paperback, every audiobook a senior wanted was available free at the public library. The card cost nothing. The hold list was free. A widow in Pittsburgh in 1994 canceled 4 magazine subscriptions, stopped buying paperbacks, and saved $228 a year. She read more, not less. The Carnegie Libraries of Western Pennsylvania had been built in the 1890s on the philosophy that knowledge belonged to the poor. By 1994, that promise was still standing. The librarians at the Oakland branch knew every senior on the visiting list by name. Most of them had been coming in since the 1940s. The card was not charity. The card was a subscription a senior had been funding through taxes for 45 years. Here is what nobody tells a senior living alone. The financial industry has built an entire economy around the assumption that you will be too lonely, too tired, or too afraid to push back. The unsolicited insurance call, the reverse mortgage commercial during the morning news, the pharmacy that doesn't mention the generic, the grocery store that places the expensive eggs at eye level and the cheap ones on the bottom shelf. None of it is illegal. All of it is design. Walter Hensley understood this in 1991, when these systems were still young. He used to say one thing to his daughter on the phone: "They are counting on me being tired. I am not going to be tired about money." He was 74. He was widowed. He lived alone in a frame house at the edge of a small Pennsylvania city. And he was the hardest customer any salesman on his block ever met. That is not a personality trait. That is a decision a senior has to make once and then defend every day. Number 16, the quarterly bank statement review. 4 times a year, the senior sat down with the bank statement and a cup of coffee and read every single line. Subscription charges, recurring fees, small unexplained debits. The review took 45 minutes. A widow in Altoona in 1995 found 3 forgotten charges totaling $34 a month, $408 a year, drifting out of her checking account for services she had stopped using 2 years earlier. She made 4 phone calls. The charges stopped. The review paid for itself the first time she did it. Most seniors never did it once. The statement was not paperwork. The statement was a leak the bank was not going to fix on its own. A 1991 pressure cooker cost $32 and lasted 30 years. Dried beans that cost 60 cents a bag cooked in 25 minutes instead of 4 hours. A senior who switched from canned beans to dried beans saved $86 a year. Tougher cuts of meat, like chuck, shank, and brisket, became tender in 40 minutes for half the price of a steak. The cooker was the single most undervalued kitchen tool of the late 20th century. During World War II, the federal government distributed pressure cookers to homemakers as part of the home front canning program. Walter Hensley's pressure cooker, bought in 1959, was still in service in 2003. He estimated it had paid for itself 400 times over. The cooker was not equipment. The cooker was a $32 investment with a 44-year return. Number 14. The senior discount audit. Almost every business offered a senior discount in 1992. Almost no senior asked for one. The audit was simple. Once a month, the senior made a list of every place they had spent money: pharmacy, hardware store, diner, hairdresser, and then called or asked at the next visit whether a senior discount existed. A retired teacher in Johnstown in 1993 found 11 senior discounts she had never claimed. Annual recovery was $267. The discounts had been printed on the wall. She had simply never looked up. The discount was not a favor. The discount was a price already on the menu. Number 13. The freezer inventory. A small index card was taped to the freezer door. Every item entering the freezer was logged with its date. Every item leaving was crossed off. The card took 10 seconds each time. A senior in Erie in 1994 stopped throwing away forgotten, freezer-burned food and saved $180 a year. Home freezers had only become common in American kitchens after 1948. The first generation to own one, the women who married just before or after the war, were the last generation to treat the freezer as a vault rather than a junk drawer. They knew what was in it because they had grown up with mothers who had nothing to put in anything at all. The card was not organization. The card was $180 of meat that no longer froze itself into garbage. Number 12. The walking errand. A senior who could walk to the post office, the pharmacy, and the small grocer combined the errands into a single trip 3 times a week. Gas saved in a 1991 Buick at 14 miles per gallon was roughly $230 a year. The walking was free exercise that delayed the need for paid physical therapy by an estimated 2 years. The widow in Walter's neighborhood who walked her errands until she was 89 saved an estimated $4,100 on gas across her retirement and another $3,200 in delayed medical costs. She also lived 8 years longer than the average woman on her street. The math was not subtle. The walk was not exercise. The walk was a car that had been turned into a savings account. Number 11. The refused help. When an adult child offered to just handle the senior's bills, the senior politely refused. Not because the child was untrustworthy, because the moment a senior stops looking at their own money, the leaks begin and no one notices. A 2020 study by the University of Michigan tracked 2,400 seniors who had transferred bill paying to adult children. Within 5 years, 71% had experienced significant unexplained financial losses, averaging $14,300 each. The seniors who kept their own books were the most financially stable demographic in retirement. Walter Hensley wrote his own checks until the month before he died. The refusal was not pride. The refusal was a senior keeping their own eyes on their own money. Number 10. The estate folder. A single manila folder sat in a fireproof box at the back of the closet. Inside, the will, the deed, the insurance policy numbers, the bank account list, the funeral preferences, and the names of the lawyer and the executor. A widow in Reading, Pennsylvania assembled hers in 1990 and updated it every January. When she died in 2007, her children settled her estate in 11 days. The folder cost $2.40. It saved her family an estimated $14,000 in legal fees and a year of grief. The American Bar Association reported in 2005 that fewer than 1 in 3 Americans over 65 had a complete estate file. The generation that had buried parents during the Depression, when nothing was written down and everything was fought over, knew exactly what the folder prevented. The folder was not paperwork. The folder was love, spelled out on the back of a tab. Number 9. The cash withdrawal limit. Once a week, the senior withdrew a set amount of cash, and that was the spending money for the week. No card swipes, no tap, no saying just this once. When the cash was gone, the week was over. Walter Hensley withdrew $40 every Monday for 19 years. He never went over. The system was not a budget. The system was a wall between himself and the small invisible spending that eats a fixed income from the inside. By 2001, behavioral economists at Cornell were publishing papers describing this exact technique under fancier names. Walter's mother had been doing it in 1933 with a coin purse. The withdrawal was not a limit. The withdrawal was a fence between Monday and the rest of the week. In 1990, the average American senior over 65 living alone spent 73% of their fixed income on necessities. By 2020, that number had risen to 91%. The seniors were not living more lavishly. The leaks had grown. Streaming subscriptions no one canceled. Banking fees no one noticed. Recurring charges buried in statements no one read. Cell phone plans designed to renew at higher rates. A senior in 1990 had to defend against 5 or 6 financial leaks. A senior in 2026 has to defend against 30. The defenses Walter Hensley learned in 1933 still work. They just have to be deployed more often, against more enemies, by a senior who is now operating alone in a house that has gotten quieter every year. The old rules were not designed for this much pressure. They are still the only rules that hold. Number 8. The repaired tool. When something broke, the senior tried to fix it before buying a replacement. The lamp with a loose cord, the toaster with a stuck lever, the chair with a wobbly leg. A small toolbox under the kitchen sink contained a screwdriver, a wrench, electrical tape, wood glue, and a tube of epoxy. The total inventory cost was $18. Walter Hensley repaired an estimated $2,400 worth of household items over 20 years of retirement using that toolbox. The repairs did not have to be perfect. They had to last another year. The toolbox was a refusal to call a serviceman who charged $85 to show up. Number 7. The death of the landline. By 2010, a senior paying for both a landline and a cell phone was bleeding roughly $480 a year unnecessarily. The widow who canceled her landline in 2011 and kept only a basic cell phone saved that amount every year for the rest of her life. The arithmetic was not complicated. The emotional weight was. The landline had been the family's number for 40 years. The grandchildren had it memorized. AT&T had installed the phone in 1971 for $14.95. Letting it go in 2011 felt like losing one more piece of the house. The savings were real anyway. The phone line was a habit, charging $40 a month to remain unchanged. Number 6. The garden in 6 containers. A senior with even a small porch could grow tomatoes, basil, lettuce, peppers, and herbs in 6 cheap containers. Annual cost in 1992 was about $14 in seeds and soil. Annual production value was roughly $180 in fresh produce. The widow in Walter's church grew 6 containers on her back step for 19 years. She gave half the tomatoes away. The other half were the only tomatoes she ate. The Victory Garden movement of 1943 had taught 20 million American households to grow food on porches, in alleys, on rooftops. 40 years later, those gardens had vanished from most yards. The widows in their 70s remembered. The grandchildren did not. The pot was not decoration. The pot was a grocery aisle she had built on a step that had previously held nothing. Number 5. The funeral pre-plan. A senior visited a funeral home in their 60s, chose the casket, the service, and the burial plot, and paid the bill in full while still working. The total cost in 1985 for a modest funeral was $1,800. The total cost in 2020 for the same arrangement was $9,400. The pre-plan locked the price at $1,985, and the family received a paid funeral. Walter Hensley prepaid his funeral in 1979 for $1,200. When he died in 2004, the same funeral was being billed at $7,800. The savings were not the point. The point was that no one in his family ever had to make a financial decision during the worst week of their life. The pre-plan was the last bill a man paid while he could still bargain. Number 4. The annual insurance review. Every February, Walter sat down with his auto, home, and supplemental Medicare policies and called 2 competitors for fresh quotes. The call took 90 minutes total. Average annual savings across the 3 policies was $340. Across 19 years of retirement, the February call saved him $6,460. The insurance companies counted on inertia. They counted on the senior being too tired to call. Walter made the call sitting at his kitchen table on the first Saturday of February with a pot of coffee. He treated it like an appointment with himself. He never missed one. The call was 90 minutes that paid more than a part-time job. Number 3. The invisible wealth rule. No senior living alone ever told anyone, friend, neighbor, distant relative, charity solicitor, or a financial advisor they had not personally retained, how much money they actually had. Not the savings, not the bonds, not the value of the paid-off house. Walter Hensley owned his home. He held $74,000 in bank certificates of deposit by 1999, and not a single neighbor on his block suspected he had more than $5,000 to his name. He drove a 1986 Buick. He wore the same flannel coat for 16 winters. He had inherited the rule from his mother. She had said one sentence in 1933 that he never forgot: "If they know, they will come." She did not mean burglars. She meant the church, the salesman, the nephew with a business idea, the friendly voice on the phone. Walter's invisible wealth was the reason 11 grandchildren received savings bonds every December for 13 years. The silence was not secrecy. The silence was a fortress a senior built, one declined conversation at a time. Number 2. The written routine. A senior living alone wrote down their week. On Monday, bank statement check. On Tuesday, pharmacy pickup. On Wednesday, grocery shopping with coupons. On Thursday, walking errands. On Friday, cash withdrawal and bill payments. On Saturday, house repairs and a pot to cook on Sunday. On Sunday, cook the pot, read the paper, and write the letter. The routine fit on a single index card taped inside a kitchen cabinet. The card was a defense against the drift that pulls a widowed senior into the chair in front of the television, where the day disappears and the spending happens by accident. Walter's index card was replaced every 2 years. The wording barely changed. The card was a senior, refusing to let the week happen to him. Number 1. Spend less than the check. That is the whole rule. No 64-degree thermostat. No darned sock. No pressure cooker. None of the 24 tricks above work without this one beneath them. Walter Hensley received $812 a month from Social Security. He spent $690. The $122 gap defended every month for 19 years, paid the property taxes, funded the savings bonds, bought the Christmas presents, replaced the roof in 1998, and left $74,000 in certificates of deposit when he died. There was no trick beneath it. There was a gap. Walter held the gap open every month, and the gap built everything. It is the most boring sentence anyone has ever spoken about money. It is also the sentence that lets a widowed senior on a fixed income stay in her own home until the day she chooses to leave it. None of these tricks require a smartphone. None of them require a financial advisor, an adult child willing to help, or a degree in anything at all. They require a senior willing to sit at a kitchen table with a pencil and a notebook and run a small economy out of one quiet house. The seniors of Walter Hensley's generation were not frugal. They were the last cohort in America trained from childhood to assume that nobody was coming to save them. They built defenses, and they kept them sharp into their 80s. They died in their own beds, in their own paid-off homes, with money still in the bank, having spent their final decades not as victims of the financial system, but as people the financial system could never quite reach. They did it without complaint and almost without witness. We called them stubborn. We called them set in their ways. They were neither. They were the last generation that took their own money seriously in old age. The notebook is still in the drawer. The rules are still on the page. They are waiting for any senior willing to do what Walter Hensley did at the kitchen table on the first Saturday of every month, count the money, set aside the gap, and refuse to let anyone ever talk them out of it.